In this video, I'm going to share with you some of the best EQs I have found for the new Astro A50X across many different games. And before we dive into this video, when we talk EQs, number one, from headphones to EQs to sound profiles, it's all personal preference. So when I take you over to the computer and show you some of these, I'm not saying, hey, this is the one to use or this is the best. I'm just stating these are some fun EQs I have really been grinding at and trying to really dial in for many different games. You can try them out and maybe tweak them from there. But again, you may like a little more bass or a little more highs than me. This is just, again, a fun project to test out and then maybe a starting point for you. And also, throughout this entire video, even right now, you're going to be hearing the microphone on the Astro A50X. All right, so let's go and dive into the Logitech G Hub here. And as you're seeing this is all on PC again. Now you can use this headset with the app and dabble with EQs on the app. And everything I'm going to show you here, again, you can do there. So if you're just on console, not on PC, you can do the same stuff on your phone. And again, use it on whatever platform you're on, since again, the A50X works across every console. So anyways, let's go and dive into G Hub. And what I want to show you first, since again, you're hearing this microphone before we start talking EQs, is show you what settings I'm using for the microphone here. So as you see, I have it set to broadcast. And then as far as my noise gate, I got it set to home. I don't have a very noisy environment, but I don't have much sound dampening my room. It's just a basic room setup. I do have a fan, a ceiling fan running above me. And then my PC is running down there. The fans are running everything. So if you hear any of that, that is what it is. But anyways, I just wanted to show you my basic microphone settings. So now let's go and dive into some of the EQs. And as you see, I got quite a few games here, but we're going to kick it off with Call of Duty. And I got my traditional smiley curve with Call of Duty. Now, as far as I'm not a big fan of the new Call of Duty, but Call of Duty is Call of Duty, and it's a chaotic game. There's lots of sounds going on. Usually you hear your footsteps over your enemy's footsteps all the time, right? So what I tend to do is bring out my highs a lot more. Even though these graphene drivers on the A50X, they're very tight and they're very sharp and detailed, I'm still pulling out a little bit of highs for Call of Duty here, but I still want some of that bass and that immersion. So as you see, I got my bass down here at 2.5, and then I also have my mids right here in the middle, brought up to 1 extra decibel. But again, you can see my highs are up to 3.5, and that is a lot for this headset still being sharp. But what it does here is, again, it still mellows, again, the bass and the mids, your footsteps that you're hearing, and still pulls out some of those highs. So you can still hear those reloads or those grenades or someone running down the side of you. So again, Call of Duty, no matter which way you slice it, it's a chaotic game with so many different sounds going on. So it's really not so much a headset, it's like in-game audio with this one. But this EQ, I had a lot of fun with. Again, I still had that immersion and I still had that detail. But again, if you want a little bit more bass, just pull it up a little bit. But this is a really, really fun starting point, I think, here that gives you that immersion in the competitive edge. Now, for our next game, we're going to take a look at is Diablo. And this has been my main game lately. I've been playing the mess out of this across every platform: Xbox, PlayStation, PC, PlayStation Portal, and everything. Gosh, I don't know. I have a good time with it, but it is also another chaotic game, and it can be harsh on the ears. It really can. Like sometimes, just like, man, let me take the headset off and just play regular, without any audio. It can get that tiring. So again, with this headset being sharper, you can see I still pulled my highs out a little bit. This is giving it a little bit of body, right? Because you can keep it at flat, but again, right here, you can see I'm pulling everything out, giving it a little bit of body. So I pull my highs up to plus 2 decibels here. My mids are 0.5, but my bass is all the way up to that 2.5. And then we slowly, gradually come down, as you see over here, again, up to the highs at 2. So you still want those highs because you want to hear the difference. Like, for example, I got the lightning ability just like everybody else, right? So you want to hear that crackle going around, and you want to hear that slashing of your enemies, and you want to hear the different sounds of each different monster or enemy out there. But with Diablo, if you have too many highs, again, it's going to get harsh, and you're going to want to take the headset off, especially with the A50X, because those graphene drivers just, again, they're very crispy. So still, I recommend you with Diablo, like, you can even dabble with a little bit more bass here. I would keep your highs still up there because you want to hear those abilities. But as far as the bass end, I like it here, but if you pull out too much bass in this headset, it can get a little bit kind of wonky sounding, a little bit kind of jumbled. So this is a really nice, fun setting here. But I think if there's one thing you might want to dabble with this is pull out maybe a little bit more mids and maybe a pinch more bass, but still keep those highs up there. So again, you hear your abilities. This one was hard, but man, I had a lot of fun with those. 'Cause once I dialed it in, I was like, okay, I can get down with this and I can use this for long sessions without it being harsh on my ears. The next game we're going to take a look at is Destiny, or as I have it in here, Durstiny. But anyways, this is Destiny. I play a lot of Destiny, as you guys know. Maybe not as much anymore as I used to, but still one of my prime games. The sounds I can really relate with because I've been playing with it, playing Destiny since day one. And as you see, what we have here, if you're looking at this, it's very familiar to the Call. Let me go on dabble over. I'll show you the Call of Duty one. There you go. Bam. Right over to the Destiny. Pretty much the exact same, except I dropped those highs a little bit. Again, because this is constant monsters and enemies in front of you, so you don't want that. It's almost like that Diablo, like you don't want that sharpness constantly in your ears, or it's going to get harsh and annoying. And again, it's just fatiguing over time for those long sessions. So you want to kind of balance it out a little bit. And again, same as I stated with Diablo, with Destiny, if there's one thing you were to dabble with, maybe a little bit more bass. But what I noticed when I tried pulling out more bass with Destiny, some of the weapons or like a bow, it would make them sound a little bit softer. When me personally, when I play Destiny, I want that bow to be like really sharp, and I want to hear like when I'm using a scout rifle, I want to hear it pop. I don't want it to be real thick and hollow. I want it to be sharp, pop, and really deliver right there. And that's why, again, I pull out my highs a little bit here. And if I tried pulling out a little bit more bass, it kind of softened everything up a little bit for my liking. But as you can see, I use a smiley curve a lot. I like, again, that crisp sound with those highs being potent, but not harsh. So again, it's a hard mix with this headset here with the graphene drivers. Hence the reason I want to show you these EQs. But again, this is a really nice, manageable EQ. Me personally, again, playing Destiny, this was perfect for me. Now, for our next game, we're going to be looking at Fortnite. And just looking at this EQ, you can see it's significantly different than a lot of the other games we looked at here. Our highs, we kind of bounce them out at the end at +2 decibels. Our bass, we have pulled up to 2, dropping that at 1.5. And wow, right down here, we bring our bass to 0. And then our mids back down here to that flat as well. And then we start creeping back up. And what I found out with Fortnite here is, again, you got a lot going on when there's enemies around you, but if there's not enemies around you, you kind of want a nice manageable sound where your footsteps aren't overtaking everything. That's what you can really experience with Fortnite. And again, same with Call of Duty. Like if you're just hearing your footsteps, it's going to have your mind going crazy. You're not going to know where to look, right? So what I did here is I softened out again some of that bass and those mids, which mellowed again your footsteps down a little bit. You still want that bass in there because you want to hear those grenades and you want those gunshots to be impactful. You still want to have fun with your game, is my point, right? And then coming over here, we still have our highs creeping up a little bit, kind of back into that smiley type of vibe. So again, you're going to hear those enemy footsteps and you're going to have that sharpness of each weapon. If you're shooting a sniper rifle or something, you want it to sound like a sniper rifle. And that's what you got right here. So again, this was weird. I actually started off with my mids actually drop down even more. And this is a good route to go, is if again, if you pull it down, but it kind of took some of the fun and excitement out of it. And I don't know, me personally, I game to have fun, right? And I want to feel like I'm in there. And when I balanced it back out to flat, I got that nice middle ground. So again, I did start with those dropped even more because it did pull out the footsteps even more. So if you're just straight up competitive, again, drop that bass and mids down a little bit more right there. Not too much, but maybe a notch or two. And you will get those footsteps a little bit more, but it's going to take some of the fun out of the game. Hence the reason I went with this setup. Now, for this next EQ, we're going to really switch things up a bit, talking for Halo here. And this one was hands down the hardest EQ. Again, this headset was a tough one just out of the gate, right? But Halo was tough. You've heard me say in many other headsets before, Halo is footsteps with the bass. You're going to hear the footsteps more with your bass when Call of Duty or, Fortnite or something. You want some of those highs in there so you can hear those high pitched things, Rainbow Six, stuff like that, right? And as you see with this EQ, we still have our highs, but we pull them down. And I do something I usually never do, right over here in the mids, you can see I start pulling them up. The mids into the bass at 2 decibels up to 1.5. And we're getting down to our highs over here at 1 decibel up to 2. So you can see we got a wave going on, which is usually something I never do. I always go with that smiley curve. And why I did this, over here in the mid range, I didn't want that player that's right in front of me, those footsteps to be prominent. I wanted to be able to pinpoint the footsteps that were out and around. And that was very hard with Halo because, again, you got more bass in the footsteps. So you might be asking, why do I still have bass over here? Well, again, I still want to have fun in the game. I want a little bit of that immersion. I want some of that body in there. I want to hear the different sounds of the weapons. Hence the reason I have the bass down there. But the mids, this whole area here from the 1 up to the 2, back down to 1 right here, is again, so I'm not hearing too many of my footsteps or my teammate that's right in front of me. I want to still be able to hear those footsteps up and around the corner. Hopefully that makes sense, which is why you also have some highs, but then you pull it down and then you peak it up. It's kind of, again, settling those sounds around right around you and then pulling out some of the distant sounds. Because that enemy's right in front of you, well, you don't need to hear him. Your aim better be good and you better be able to get him. You know what I mean? So this was a tough EQ, one of the hardest ones I tested, and I can't stress it enough. Even with this headset being, a different headset with the graphene drivers, this was a very hard EQ, and you might want to play around with this one a little bit. And it was a tough one for me, but I did have a pretty good time once I dialed this one in. Our next EQ we're going to look at is a game I'm not sure if many of you play. Let me know down in the comments if any of you play this here. Insurgency Sandstorm. God, I used to play the heck out of this game. Right now, I probably dabble with it a little bit. I'm not nearly as good as I used to be by any means. And what I would like to class this game as is like an environmental shooter. Maybe if you're playing Battlefield. Unfortunately, I don't play Battlefield anymore, even though it was one of my favorite games. It was a new one I just could not get into. But I would put the sound of this game just like that, you know? It's a lot going on. You got the environmental sounds. You got, again, the person talking in your headset. It's just a very environmental, detailed sound. Hence the reason I have more highs, but I still got the bass. And believe it or not, I pull up a lot of those mids right there, just so again I got some of that body and it's not too sharp. This headset with Insurgency Sandstorm, the weapons, you got a lot of that realistic type sound. Your footsteps are quite loud, you know. But if a grenade goes off, it can be extremely harsh, you know. So Insurgency Sandstorm, the sound on it is it's a fun sound, but it may not be the most competitive. Again, that's why I say environmental, kind of like Battlefield. It's just what are you trying to hear? Do you want more environment? Do you want more gunshots? Do you want more footsteps? So what I got with Insurgency Sandstorm was something where we have a slight case of smiley, and then we're almost at flat. I just boosted everything up here. So again, I'm on that battlefield a little bit more, you know. So this one, I don't want to say it's tough. It's again back to the case of what's more of that game. How is that game sound profile being? But here, even though this headset is sharper, I'm still pulling out a little bit more highs because I love the detail of the weapon sounds in Insurgency Sandstorm. But I still pull out those mids and the bass because I want to feel like I'm on that battlefield. And if you're in that same room or house, whatever, with the enemy, you can really pinpoint the ear. But of course, if you got a grenade or a bunch of people shooting around you, Insurgency Sandstorm, those weapons are so prominent that that's going to overtake anything, really, no matter what kind of EQ you get here. So this one is pretty fun. So our next game is another different one, kind of like we saw with Halo, right? We're talking about Starfield, or again, you can talk about any really open world type of game. But again, focusing on Starfield, you can see I really peaked up our highs and rolled down into our mids. I mean, I got our highs up at 4.5. That's the most we had on any EQ here, right? We're dropping down to 2.5 right when we get into our mids, and then whoop, we just landslide off in our mids to 0.5, and then we start pulling a bass anymore. So let me explain this to you. I want you to try it out. And again, play some. Don't just get on and, okay, here's this EQ. I like it or I don't like it. You got to play around, take your ship off, go fly, do a mission or two, you know. And that's where this really came to life here is talking about with the ship or when you're warping out. You got that bass, so you feel, again, that ship taking off. You got some of that bass rumble in here. Then you felt it warp out, you know, or with your weapons. And then I pulled down into our mids here, right? And I kind of softened everything up because I didn't want that spaceship sounding muddied, right? jumbled. I didn't want that, which is crazy because you heard me talk about in my review of this headset is if you pull out too much bass, it's gonna get muddy and kind of jumbled. And that's what I did here. I wanted that bass, I wanted that body, but I pulled out the mids to kind of soften and get rid of some of that muddiness there. But then, bam, right up into our highs. So I'm getting that sharp weapon sound, the ship sound blasting off. But the cool thing right here, again with this, so we got our ship. Look at the base as kind of like the spaceship and stuff. Look over here as like your environment. When I was just walking on a planet, you heard the crunching of the soil or the rocks underneath your boots. It was so cool. It was really cool. And again, that's why I dropped off here because if you pulled out more of these mids, you didn't get that crunch of like, heel toe, heel toe. You kind of got, and it wasn't as detailed, and I didn't feel like I was on that planet. With this here, again, it was so cool because you had that awesome immersion of the ship, and then you had that detail of the footsteps or the dialogue. It's really cool. Again, this looks like a goofy EQ here, but once you try it, I think you'll be able to vibe with me. And I've been dabbling with this, even though it's not a game on our list. I've been dabbling with this with Cyberpunk and stuff, and I've been having a lot of fun with its EQ across story games like that. Now, Cyberpunk, you probably have to tone down those highs a little bit more. But again, for Starfield, where it's not a very chaotic game, you're almost walking more than anything, right? This was very fun, and I highly recommend you give this one a shot. If anything's too sharp or heavy for you, just pull it down a little bit. But again, I recommend you, again, peeking, and kind of flatten out there in the middle. And the last game I have on our list here is the finals. Let me know down in the comments. What do you guys think of the game, the finals, right? I've been dabbling with it here and there, kind of playing around with it, but it's just, I don't know. I think for my taste, it's a little too chaotic. And that goes right in our EQ. You can see this one's mellowed out a lot compared to our other ones. We're still smiley. We still got our highs up to 2 decibels. Over here, we got our bass up to 1.5. And then we're just at 0 at our mids. And I played around so much with this EQ, and it's just I don't know, there's too much going on in the finals. That's my honest opinion, just as far as gameplay, but then as far as sound as well. I had to go into the game and turn off the announcer because that dude would not shut up. So I recommend if you're playing this, just turn that off. But again, even other than that, there's so much of the levelation, whatever they call it, like Battlefield, where it's falling apart. You got a roof coming down over here. It's crazy. There's too much going on. And as far as an EQ, this is the best I could get. I could get those footsteps pending what's going on in the scene with me, but I don't think there's any way you can slice it. That the game's just chaotic and there's no way to mellow it out. It's just what the game is. And this is the best EQ I could come up with. If you come up with something better, let us know down in the comments. It'll be very helpful. But again, this I could still hear again what's going on in the world, the environment in front of me. I could still get some good footsteps. I still had good sound of the weapons, but again, I did mute that announcer because it was too excessive. But I don't think that, again, like I stated, I don't think there's any way you can go about the finals in making the EQ do one or the other because the game is just so darn crazy. Now, other than the settings in games that I tested and showed you, there are other ways to do your EQs. You see, you got the advanced tab up here. You can just tab it and you can really play around and really dial in and adjust those EQ waves to, however many your bands and stuff and get a little more dialed in. But I don't recommend this. I dabbled with this as well. But again, with these graphene drivers, they're very precise to the point, and you're really going to be able to get each sound. Over here, it's not so much like, okay, well, if I just pull this up here and that up right there and wave this around, it's not so much different. You're going to drive yourself nuts with this. I recommend you keep an advanced off and just go with the classic over here and just dabble it up that way. Now, the other thing is you have custom presets up here. You got default, which is just straight up flat. You can go to gaming, and I dabbled with this gaming here, and it's almost like I don't know how this isn't like gaming. This is more or less like Counter Strike EQ is where I would put this, right? They drop that bass, they're pulling out those highs. I don't know, do they want to call it like FPS, but it's FPS without any fun, without any immersion. So again, I don't recommend you using a gaming one. Maybe if you're competitive Counter Strike, that's where this one would truly shine. And then coming over here to media, you're kind of coming more into my vibe. You get a little bit of bass. You're coming up here with the trebles, but of course they're dropping theirs off right there, making it a little bit softer. Again, any of the basic ones, believe it or not, the one I liked out of all of them was the default. So you got that stock quality sound, which is pretty darn good, actually. Again, when you get down here to the custom ones is when you start having some fun with it. But again, I recommend you going with the regular classic band, not with the advanced, because you're going to drive yourself a little bit nuts with that. And again, it's not worth it. The minute differences over here, you can really pull down those highs a little bit more or pull up that bass and be able to show it. But like I stated, even in my standalone review and with a lot of these EQs, be careful with pulling out too much bass because this headset will start to sound muddy. Those graphene drivers are so tight is once you start trying to push them and making that bass constantly go, it will get a little bit muddy and soften things up there, which is not very good. But again, as I stated in the beginning of the video, these are not the EQs you need to use or the best EQs. These are EQs I have been grinding at over here, trying to dial in. But again, at the end of the day, I'm the one with the headset on my head and it's my sound preference, right? Some of you may have the same sound preference, some of you may not. Again, it's fun to dabble around and play with these, and that's what I want it to be, something you can play around with and then just tweak up how you want, because your sound is not going to be the same as mine or anybody else out there. It can just be a core starting point and a fun project to play around with, and that's what I want this to be. And I hope it was helpful, and I hope you had fun with it. And let me know what you think about it. If you tested some of them out, let me know, hey man, you had a little bit too much bass. I'd just love to hear and talk sound profiles with you guys. So again, hopefully this was able to help you out and hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit that thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I hope I catch you in the next one. Bye now.